It's the Don't Make It Weird podcast with your hosts, Daniel and Dina.
Hello there, and welcome to the Don't Make It Weird podcast. We are your comedy storytelling podcast for the writing community, or actually for anyone. Don't listen to me. It's for your faces. It's for your beautiful, sexy faces. But we want to be your comedy storytelling podcast, and we hope you guys check this out, because I am joined, as always, by my better half. I am joined by the shining star of strenuous, serendipitous, stupendous serenity, Dina. Hey, so Dina, quick question: How come you didn't put on makeup today? Like I thought the show was serious. I thought you were.
Just natural beauty is more important to me than anything.
Than doing any makeup or spending an hour in a Discord channel putting on makeup, is that? Dina, you look gorgeous, doll. You look gorgeous.
Thank you.
Your hair's on point. You are prepared. So Dina, I felt like after like last week's cringy copulation where we got like really into Jurassic loads that there was only one real choice here. Would you agree that it's time to just fucking get back to the cult?
I agree. Back to the cult. To the cult machine.
Back to the cult, everyone. And that's what we're going to be doing today, guys.
She decided to rejoin the cult after being subject to that.
What if I did?
After some Chuck Tingle, Dina's like, nope, I'm good here, secular community.
That was way too secular. That was like extreme secularism.
That was just the devil.
That was just purely the devil. And guys, if you're hearing a third voice here, that's the only adult in the room. Because you know what, guys? So rock me, Shawnee, like a wagon wheel. Rock me, Shawnee, any way you feel. Hey, Shawnee, rock me. Rock me, Shawnee, like the wind and the rain. Rock me, Shawnee, like a choo-choo train.
I need you to cut him off. He's
Sean,
way too into that.
Rock me. Producer Sean, everyone. Somebody.
I was right there. I was hovering over the boot button to kick him out of the studio.
Right there to get the hook in there and get it out.
I was hovering over the button.
Yeah, listen, I feel really good about my dedication in season 3 to
Dina is like completely butchering her camera frame right now. Like in the middle of hold on, I was freaking out because in the middle of Daniel introducing her, she's like adjusting her camera and like moving things around, and I can hear her arm rubbing against her microphone, and I'm like, oh god, is she gonna recover in time? Earlier, she smacked her microphone because there was a bug on it, and it went boom, like really loudly, and me and Daniel jumped.
I'm sorry.
But to be fair, great. Dina, you've had a little bit of a day. Why don't we pull back the curtains? Let people into your home. What just happened? What did you just experience
like
before coming on the show?
5 minutes ago.
Yeah, so like 9 o'clock hit when we're supposed to record. I was on the toilet and I was taking pee. And as I pulled down my pants,
leaving one actually,
cheeks touched porcelain, and I said, "That's a weird looking hair tie. That's a fucking rattlesnake." And we had to catch and wrangle a rattlesnake while I was supposed to be in the studio.
Listen, let's not play this easy. How were you attempting to get this rattlesnake, Dina?
Barehanded, just trying to grab it. And Tim came in and he was like, "Move! I've got gloves and tongs." And
you know, I'm not up on my rattlesnake lore, Sean, but baby rattlesnake's the most poisonous. Am I right?
I mean, I assume so. They have the freshest venom.
Freshest venom, yeah. So you're going after the most venomous version of an incredibly venomous snake, barehanded. That's so fucking Florida, Dina. I can't with you.
All that I was thinking of was to protect my child.
Those mom instincts, those mom instincts checked in, and she was like, "Bite me, not the baby."
I'm like, have you seen those videos of the mom protecting her child from a bear, and like the mom literally just like is holding the child back to bear just to protect the child? I cry every time, bro.
Yeah, and listen, imagine if any of those parenting instincts were present in this documentary that we are about to discuss today, guys. Maybe it'd be less traumatic and make us less sad in this episode. So for those of you guys that don't know, we normally have fun. We normally get goofy and get wild, and you know, as our show says, we don't make it weird. Except every so often, we've got a nice connection with cult life, and Dina will explain about that in a little bit. But we are talking about shiny happy people today. We're diving back into the cult, and this is a really fucking traumatic episode. So be wary. Dina, what do we want to tell the folks?
The upcoming discussion delves into topics related to religious beliefs, strict traditional gender roles, sexual abuse, and practices that some may find restrictive or controversial. This episode in particular goes heavy on the topic of sexual abuse, so please practice good self-care and proceed with caution if you're sensitive to such subjects, or consider skipping this discussion entirely if it might be distressing to you.
And especially in this episode, guys, you are 100% like practice self-care, because this is going to be a fucking wild one. But before we get to the craziness, because
Cuba Pinot, baby.
Yup. This is going to be our self-care. I'm going to be drinking moonshine straight out of the mason jar today. Sean, if folks want to drink along with us, what are we doing? Perfect.
Oh, yeah. We should absolutely segue into talking about the drinking games before we get started. We have a couple of drinking games we play ongoing. Dina's pissing in her cup right now, and there might be another rattlesnake nearby. Who knows? We are members of Buffalo Club. We practice Buffalo here. That means we use our offhand to drink. We're all right-handed. That means we must use our left hand. If we're caught using our right hand, we can Buffalo each other, which means we call each other out. And if you get caught, you have to finish your drink. We also have some particular buzzwords and phrases. If you hear this, that means someone said one of those things and Dina's camera just died.
Oh, no, she's back. There she is.
If you hear this sound, that means that someone said one of those buzzwords or phrases, and that means we have to drink. Play along with us at home responsibly.
Yeah, or, don't. Like, just have a bad time and, whatever you want to do. You're an adult. We trust you guys. And if you're not an adult, why are you here? You should not be here. I feel like we say this every episode. But, guys, we sometimes I need you guys to turn off the lights. I need you to put on some good mood music. I need you to leave your disbelief at the door, because it's time for Dina's TikTok conspiracy.
I had to burp, sorry.
Girls don't burp. False.
Yeah, it was just a face fart.
Face
All right.
Love it. Go on.
I don't know if anybody else has watched the documentary about Nickelodeon, whatever, Quiet on Set.
I watched like the first episode of it, or first 2 episodes. Yeah.
So, anybody else notice?
Keep it on brand here.
That Epstein's island is the same shape as the Nickelodeon logo?
Go on.
That's it.
That's it.
So are we saying that Nickelodeon purposely made their logo to look like Epstein Island?
Yes.
Why?
I don't see
child sex trafficking.
Well, I'm aware of that, but why is Nickelodeon? Okay, so this is my biggest problem with all of these like hidden clues and stuff like towards like sex trafficking. Like if you're doing something highly immoral, highly illegal, and the type of thing that can get you killed or your entire life and family's life and businesses ruined, why would you try to hide clues for people to see?
I'm trying to,
because you get off on the power
better than Dina's phone.
So getting off on like being able to like fuck with people in straight sight.
Yeah.
And, like,
so
like
when you're that rich, like money stops mattering, right?
Uh-huh.
So what do you get out of life? Power.
Thumbing your nose at the peasants that you can let them. Okay, that's Jeffrey. I mean, if you rotated it a little bit, like I can.
There's also another island off to the side that matches that dot.
Okay, all right, we're digging deeper in here. Nickelodeon, part of the sex trafficking underground.
Or it could just be like a jizz splat,
Oh,
oh my God, Daniel!
Let's delete that. Yeah, let's delete that.
Let's beep that out.
Let's go ahead and delete that whole thing.
He works with children. We have to beep that out.
I'm sorry. Sean hates me so much right now.
Why did you think?
Because out of context, that could be the single worst thing I've ever said on this show.
Not just on this show.
What the fuck?
Because it's so absurd to me that you try. Even though Nickelodeon did have a lot of cum shot jokes and all that, which is highly weird in retrospect and a whole other can of worms I never even thought about. But yeah, with Nickelodeon, maybe that joke hits a little too close to home here.
So comfortable.
So, okay, Jeffrey Epstein is part of the Illuminati that is thumbing their nose at the peasants in plain sight, and Nickelodeon is getting in on it to let you know that you have no power and control and that children and innocence has no place here in America. Is that what the general TikTok we're going for?
Sure.
Excellent. Sean, how true do you rate this conspiracy?
10 out of 10.
Lightly plausible.
Listen, your last one still rocks my world, the Waze fucking app, because now I've started going my own way on purpose just to see if I can save time. And
every time.
And yeah, I'm now fighting the machine. And out of all the conspiracy TikToks we've done, that one still blows my mind.
Yeah.
And I can't.
I saved myself nearly 10 minutes today because I didn't follow the GPS. Yeah.
10 minutes?
Yeah, it wanted me to
Usually
take
I can
41
shave off 1 or 2
instead of just taking the main highway.
There you go.
Yeah.
See, Dina's getting wins everywhere here, guys. So I have a question, Sean. Are we allowed to have a quick shower thought?
That's up to Dina. She's piloting this ship today.
Dina?
How quick is it?
I mean,
it's already too long.
Okay. All right. We won't get in the shower, guys. We're going to stay dry. So
like his wife.
God.
Like the Sahara Desert out there, guys. So, guys, we're going to be jumping into discussing Shiny Happy People. This is our third time discussing it, and we have a little bit of a history with cults and stuff like that. Before we describe what the show is about, Dina, tell us a little bit about kind of, for the folks that this is maybe their first episode, maybe they don't fully understand, give them a little bit of your history and how it relates to what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, so I grew up in the IFB, Independent Fundamental Baptist Organization. I was involved in 3 separate IFB churches. And there's a lot of corruption, a lot of abuse, and this particular episode is going to focus on the sexual abuse, just like it did in Shiny Happy People.
And Sean, what is Shiny Happy People?
It's a limited television documentary on Amazon Prime Video, not a sponsor, about the Duggar family who became famous on TLC with their 19 Kids and Counting show, and its relationship with the Institute in Basic Life Principles, the IBLP. This came out last year, about a year ago, and we're on episode 3 of the 4-part series.
And IFB and IBLP are very closely related, not quite the same thing, but both Independent Fundamental Baptists. And the Duggar family was idolized in the IFB.
Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely very adjacent, even if they aren't technically under the same financial umbrella. They're hanging out with each other at the barbecue. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah. Yeah, we would go to the same camps and
they fucking
under the table.
And so in the last episode that we talked about, we really got into kind of what happened with Josh Duggar, and then a lot of what the actual mechanics of inside of the control elements inside of the church. We got into eye traps, courting, a lot of the relationship type of stuff, and kind of a general idea of how they do control. We kind of touched on Paul Gothard a little bit, but episode 3 is where it really starts.
You're talking about
you
Bill
keep saying
Gothard.
Paul. It's Bill.
We finally get into Bill Gothard, and
we talked about Paul. Now we're going to talk about Bill. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good old Paul Bill.
And little old Paul Bill. We don't want to talk about Steve. But give us a little bit the quick rundown of what happened in this episode, Sean.
Yeah, so it really starts with focusing on authority and how like people in power kind of flex that to keep people in control. Um, Focusing a little bit on how Jill and her husband were like um, basically manipulated into staying on the show and tricked into signing contracts that made them like legally committed to staying on for no pay. And we'll get into that, I'm sure.
All right.
It kind of focused on how like even how Jim Bob was like portrayed as like a lovable kind of like
like a
I don't know.
goofy kind
They
of like
almost
like
he's a lovable dude.
They almost portray the dads in these families like a goofy, lovable cuck. Like he just adores and loves his wife, and like he'll do anything for. But like behind the scenes, they're jackasses.
Yeah, and he's never not smiling on camera. He's never angry. He's never raising his voice or anything. He's always looking like he's happy-go-lucky, and he's just like this lovable dude. But we learned that behind the scenes, he was kind of the puppeteer of the entire family, and he was taking all the money from TLC, and none of the kids were getting paid for their years and years of work and contributions to the TV show.
Some of their adults were taking food from food banks while this fucking guy's a millionaire. Sorry. We're still doing a recap.
And how that power dynamic really makes people feel like they have no choice, especially when it has to do with family. And then it spirals into sexual allegations against specific powerful men in the organization, mostly about Bill. And that whole snowballing thing where people kind of looked at him like he was Jesus or the Pope or whatever. So no one really questioned it if he was seen being inappropriate or anything. They were just like, oh, well, he's like an important person and he would never do anything wrong. We'll get into that too. And basically how feeling like you're under authority by powerful men can lead you to being victimized and not knowing what to do. And the rules put in place are specifically designed so that victims of these assaults are not supposed to come forward, or if they don't like come forward during the act, then they're complicit in the act and therefore not a victim. It's all very, very gross and very meticulously designed to prevent aggressors from being caught or held accountable.
And before we dive into this, every time we do the cult episode, I just like to give like a quick other shout out. We are not anti-religion here on this podcast. We have, I'm Jewish, Dina's Christian, Sean has his own belief system. We are very open-minded in a very, pro do what you do way. What we are going to be doing in this episode is mocking extremism, mocking this absolute batshit insane authority. We have no problem with the actual religion and people who are using it to better their lives. So I don't want people to feel like this is an attack. This is an attack on people who abuse religion in the name of. And Dina, I know you have some kind of feelings before we jump into this.
Yeah, that was actually a good. Thanks for hitting it over here. So yeah, real quick, I just want to because we're going to talk a lot about purity culture and sexual deviance within the IFB, IBLP, whatever. And I want to be like super crystal clear and authentic, and I don't want to be hypocritical because I am a Christian. I believe in respecting what everybody else believes, and I like approaching people based on what they believe and respecting that no matter what it is, even if I disagree. Like I don't argue with people about their beliefs. I believe that purity culture in and of itself is good, but I think that that's because I believe that having sex outside of marriage, I believe that it's a sin. I don't think you should do it. Other people, if they think that they should or whatever, go ahead, do it. I don't care. That's not my problem, not my business. And I'm not going to judge you for it either. I'll support whatever you believe in. But I think that purity culture gets used in really gross, horrible ways. So the actual act of purity culture and how it is taught and how it is portrayed and just ingrained into people, I think that is what is absolutely disgusting and gross and wrong. Because how it's done in the IFB, totally wrong. Saving yourself for marriage, I don't have a problem with that. But
Yeah.
purity culture, bad.
Yeah. And I think that there's a difference between having the freedom of choice to either save yourself or not save yourself and having that choice taken away. And I think that that's the biggest difference here in what we'll be discussing. And like we said at the beginning, this is going to be a difficult episode. There's a lot of kind of dark stuff and I try not to get riled up and get on the soapbox so we can actually have a discussion, but man, this was probably one of the, if not the most difficult episode for me to watch personally. And a lot of it starts with just the absolute control and authority you see. Dina, do you want to talk a little bit about what the umbrella of authority is?
Yeah, so
they describe in this.
The umbrella of authority is where in the IBLP and the IFB, you have God as the ultimate authority. I agree with that. And then you have the father, and then you have like the mother and then children. So father is head of the family no matter what. Mom is not technically on an equal playing field. In the IFB, you have most commonly, though they don't say it, you have God, pastor, father, mother, children.
And the weird part is too, is that, to be very clear, like the mother is on the very end of the umbrella. Like she's still getting a little bit of rain on her. She's still like the hair is still getting wet. I mean, she's technically maybe got like a toe underneath it. Because one of the weird things for me too is like, they talked about at like all these different programs, these different compounds and facilities that they had, that whoever was in charge was the oldest male there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I almost added that and I don't know. My brain threw it out. Like once her male children reach a certain age, she's listening to them. Like she's no longer, because he's a man of God now. And he can tell her what to do, not like go to your room, but like he then becomes a guide and like an authority that she looks to for her religion at that point once he's older, especially if he's left alone as the oldest man.
And what it creates is this insane system. And this is the biggest thing that you'll notice, and why, especially, this gets to us classified as a cult, is that every one of these participants, the people who make up the church, not the leaders, not the people in that are the decision makers, but the actual people that are in the cult, they're all poor. They're typically uneducated. They're in place. Typically, didn't say all.
They also act poor a lot of times.
Yes,
like people like Jim Bob will act poor.
Well, they're poor because they pay for these overpriced fucking religious programs that they send their children to, even when they can't afford it.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're forced to live on fucking food stamps
and give
shit.
their money to the church. And
Yep. So they can have that private jet and that extra house and that extra facility. We're talking about these people are on food stamps at food banks. I mean, the Duggars, they even talked about in the first episode, before they made it big and they were on the show, I mean, they were, if kids eat free at a restaurant, they were at that restaurant so they could feed their entire family. Yep. These are not wealthy people joining these churches, and it allows them to be taken advantage of because they're desperate. They need these things. And so then it gets, sorry, go on.
No, I interrupted you. I'm sorry. I was just thinking, like, I think that they prey on these poorer families because they're so desperate to look for happiness. And they can't get it. And they're like, ooh, everybody at this church is happy. They've practiced their fucking smile. Of course they look happy.
Yeah. Oh, and they'll feed you after church. And they'll talk about, like we talked about before, how they would take them to get dentist work done and things like that. And that's how they trap you in. They force you to rely on them. And one of the things that we saw in this episode is how these kids at a young age basically were fully exploited, free child labor. They were indentured servants, 16-hour days to build houses, to do this masonry work, to learn this vocational stuff. They're taught education is unnecessary. You don't need to go to college. Here, work 16-hour days so we can build this new church facility.
Oh, and that was so common too. Like none of the boys that were in the cults that I was in, they didn't get college degrees. They don't have real jobs. They're like job hopping, doing construction work, like working for the church because they are left with nothing into adulthood.
Yeah. And I think that's the part that messes with me the most is that, like, think about these Duggar kids, like all these 20 plus Duggar kids, they don't have appreciable skills. Their family's income was based on this show. So when this show went away, what are they left with?
The exploitation of their daughters who just had to lie on television and tell everyone that their older brother didn't molest them.
And then
they had to be the stars of a new show because the original show was canceled. So they kind of had their arm bent into not only like lying to everyone about how they were victims of sexual abuse, covering for their brother and their family, but then like completely exploited and not get a dime of whatever was paid out by TLC.
And I actually know several girls that were sexually exploited or molested, some even raped, that had to publicly apologize in front of the church, or at least in front of leaders, for tempting men.
Eye traps,
baby.
Yeah.
And I think that's the part that really, like, in the beginning, like, really messed with me, is that they get away with it because it's under the guise of religion, because it's for the church. They're learning to do this stuff. So in the eyes of the law, this isn't a big deal. This isn't illegal. This is just building character, building strong boys. But none of them see the benefits of their own work. And they are so reliant. They don't, and that's what keeps them in the cycle of poverty, of desperation, is that, like, your one friend that we had on the a lost episode, and we talked about how you said she's gone missing, right?
Yeah, I haven't heard from her or anything. I don't know what's going on. Like, I don't know if she went back. I don't know if she ran. I have no idea.
And that thing is that if you are not under this church umbrella, you can't survive in the secular world. You don't have any skills. Your education has been homeschooled or through this Gothard program. And so you are left that this is your one option, right?
Yeah. And, it's crazy because I don't understand how they get away with this under the guise of the Bible, because the Bible even says that the laborer is worth his wage. And they're sitting there exploiting children to get things like, and I get it, like, volunteer work is great, but like, yeah.
It was more like your payment was your opportunity to serve. Like, that's how it was positioned.
Bite me.
Like,
no.
You work 16 hours a day and you do all this manual labor, and you were just expected to serve just for the benefit of serving alone.
Yeah. There was nothing to it. And like, and you want to know what was weird? Because like, let's dive into a little bit of the Duggar finances. So none of the kids got paid out. Well, definitely none of the girls got paid out.
The kids didn't even know what the payouts were, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they were like trying to figure out what Jim Bob got paid. And he was just like, how's $10 an hour sound?
Yeah.
And this was like after they got no money for like almost a decade. And they were finally like, hey, listen, we can't survive. We have no money. We're like going to food banks. Like, can we get paid for this? Like, can you help us pay the medical bills from the birth of our child? Like, how much do you want? I can give you $10 an hour.
The birth of our child that you recorded without us, like, without our consent.
They specifically said they didn't want any cameras in there. And so TLC comes back and says, all right, fine, man. We won't put a cameraman in there. It's cool. Just take these cameras, do it yourself. And so despite them wanting no one in the room and wanting this to be a completely private thing, they had to have cameras everywhere and the whole fucking thing documented. Like, that's crazy.
I can't imagine shitting myself and my husband being like, like, stop.
See me at my absolute worst moment in my life and let's do it for likes.
Absolutely. And like, get no money.
Yeah. So TLC, if you hadn't watched the episode, they reached out to TLC and said, hey, so we recorded despite we didn't want to. Could you like just help us with
the hospital bill? Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, yeah, you're gonna take it up with your dad.
They were like, we already paid. Your dad got the money.
Hey man, and it's such a disrespectful amount. Yeah, I could pay you $10 an hour. Like, I'd rather just not even be offered, like, to get paid. Like, don't fucking, even in Arkansas, $10 an hour in this day and age is so disrespectful.
From the man that was also what he ran as
multimillionaire.
Yeah, like he was a politician too. Like, yeah, no.
And I think that's like something that I kind of go back to that like messes with me over the course of this entire episode, is that if Josh Duggar doesn't fuck up, if Josh Duggar is one of the church people that is able to keep a lid on it, that keeps his shit quiet enough, like if he was a better sick fucking criminal, I don't think any of these girls are out.
No. And you know what's also crazy is there was one line that they said in the episode where Jim Bob wanted to give them money because the boys wanted to start up some businesses. That business was Josh's downfall. And I often wonder if because Josh was keeping his child pornography stash on the computer in that business, I wonder if Jim Bob knew that it couldn't be at the house and he gave him an out on where he could keep it.
Absolutely. There's no way a man that
solid.
was...
Gina's conspiracy corner.
That's another conspiracy I'm going to give a 10 out of 10 to, Dina, because I'm with you. Because that man was in such control. Like, such control of every little bit of the thing behind the scenes. I mean, we already discussed that they knew and tried to cover it up. But there's no way he didn't know all along. There's no fucking way. No. I'm with you. He 100%. And, like, that's the thing. If Josh Duggar doesn't fuck up, if he doesn't get caught, Jim Bob is probably wins that politician seat in Arkansas, and he probably advances to higher up because he's got name value, he's got the Christian morals, he's got the wholesomeness. Guarantee he goes up. I mean, he still tried to run for state senate in Arkansas, despite there being an active investigation
That's bold,
into child power. That is fucking bold, bro. And like, that's what I'm saying is that imagine this. If this doesn't happen, if this domino doesn't get knocked over, none of this gets revealed. We're not talking about this. The girls are still there. Probably the reality show is still going on. These guys are now going to be fully up higher levels of the government. I mean, think about that.
Even without him running for office, they had incredible political connections. Like,
oh yeah, the Huckabees and
who's like that lady? Palin. Yeah, Sarah Palin.
Like,
McCain.
They had absolutely had connections and political power through the people that they knew through the church. And even if he didn't become or didn't run for office, like they still would have had that power. And like, I mean, parlay that into like the fucking government funded like facilities that they talked about, and like how Bill Gothard used like tax money basically that he was eligible for through some loophole to pay for these crazy facilities. Like,
yeah, the government's just handing out cash to them.
Like, what did they say? Excel and Character First and
all these crazy names.
All these crazy facilities that they claimed had nothing to do with Bible study or God, and just kind of like skirted around that church and state requirement. I mean, that was like heavily based in that.
Because think about what an easy sell that is if you're a politician. You go into your Senate chamber and say, hey, guys, we want to put some money down towards this church. We're going to be getting nice and wholesome here. Also, these guys are financing us. Done. Rubber stamp. Probably not even a discussion, And like, and to the cover-up thing, because I found the craziest part is that there's so many parallels between the Gothard brothers and what happened with the Duggar family. Because think about, how we talk about how if Josh Duggar doesn't fuck this up, that family's still in power, resources on TV, all that.
I mean, Bill's brother fucked up
1,000,000 times.
35 years before Bill was removed from the church or from the organization.
And not only that, but then they tried to marry him off to fix it.
Yeah, they're like, that's going to fix it. We'll just find him a wife in the church.
No. It wasn't just a wife in the church, guys. I don't know if you missed this part. It was one of his victims. They tried to
miss that
scandal. Yeah, they tried to.
No, that was the whole caveat of that.
Is that they wanted to marry him off to one of his victims, so it's not a big deal. They were actually in love. It's fine. He married. Yeah. He did the right thing. He married her,
and she's not a victim, obviously, because she married.
You can't rape your wife.
Exactly.
And that's the fucked up part is that Bill Gothard. And we're gonna. I want to get really deep into Bill here. Oh God, gross. That's what she said. I want to dive deeper into. There's no way to say it. We will discuss him further in detail, but like, because I want to talk a little bit about Dina's experience in this. But like, one of the things that like gets me, this guy, his brother, just is molesting, abusing, assaulting everyone, and everyone in this church that he's building this multi-$90 million things like, hey, you gotta cut ties with Steve, man. He's like, No. I'm gonna bring him to this facility in New York. You mean this really beautiful, isolated one that has no oversight and he has absolute freedom? That's the one.
That's
gonna be the one that's set.
And everyone who's insolent, they get sent to Steve in this isolated place in New York.
Like, oh yeah, hey, you disrespected your dad's authority. Guess what? You get to get Steved, motherfucker. Like,
Steve was meeting them all in the prayer rooms.
Oof.
And then he has more scandals, and Bill's like, listen, I know he's fucked up twice already, but he's a good guy. We'll just kind of remove him from this one authority position to another one. It'll be totally cool, and we'll marry him off to a victim.
That's exactly what happened.
Oh, that all fell through, and they finally pressured him to boot Steve out of the organization. He was like, okay, I'll ask him to leave. But now there's a new rule. It's like the anti-gossip rule.
Yeah, we found it, Matthew
18 or something.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to do gossip, which really just means you're not allowed to publicly
accuse anyone.
That someone did something to you. You're supposed to only accuse them personally and privately so that no one else knows about it.
So, Dina, next time you accuse me of giving bad hugs, I'm going to quote Matthew 18 at you because that's not okay. That's accusations. That's salacious. And I will not stand for it.
I'm spreading gossip.
You are spreading
I actually
gossip
grew up in that culture, like the Matthew 2:18. Is that it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so. That's Matthew 2:18 is the culture that I grew up in.
And like that's another thing that just messes with me and fucks me up is like his big punishment is that, hey, listen, bro. Like I guarantee I haven't followed up on Steve. I guarantee he left and lived a very comfortable, very lavish life, faced zero consequences. Guarantee he did continue to do freaky shit off the radar.
Don't worry.
Yeah. See, and that's what I'm saying. There's no punishment. There's no real punishment for all of it. All it is like, hey man, you just gotta get out of the public face now, but you're gonna live a very comfortable, happy life.
That's what happened with the goat fucker. Was his punishment what after abusing his wife, locking her in closets?
Tell him who the goat fucker is first. Let's not keep inside jokes to ourselves.
So I thought that I had talked about the goat fucker before on here.
Oh, you have, but I just for the audience, I want you to give us a quick refresh on who the goat fucker is.
Okay, goat fucker. He went to the third cult that I was in, and he got married to a girl from Bible college, and he abused her heavily, and he abused their children. I think they had 2 children. His dad was the music director, and so therefore his family was like prestigious, high up, and his wife found out that like he had fucked a goat or something, and he fucked a goat, allegedly.
Hold on.
Allegedly.
I heard they were married, so I think that's okay.
He did the right thing by the goat, okay? Like the goat's not a victim, guys.
And she ran away, but she was also like talked about from the pulpit, like, and called a horrible person and a sinner and a harlot, and she left her family.
You can't stand
she
by
abandoned
a goat
them.
fucker. What are we even doing here?
Yeah,
you know?
I'm pretty sure he's still there.
Your goat fucker.
I couldn't find him on Facebook to follow up, like to see where his life was at, and then I found out it's because I blocked him. So I'm just gonna have to like create a fake Facebook, I guess, and figure out what's going on. Yeah, that's the only
solution. Yeah, not use mine or Sean's Facebook to look him up, but use a fake one.
Can you help me out here?
Yeah,
I got a paper trail. I don't want a goat fucker paper trail.
You're gonna get a friend request.
So, hey, bro, I heard you're into goats.
Pending.
You wanna do this together, man? But all right, so talk to a little bit about, because you were under this umbrella of authority. You're, thankfully your man holding the umbrella was a good person, so your experience was different than others, but you were still subject to these issues and these authorities, especially if your dad was not present in church. Like, what was that like growing up for you?
Yeah, I always I still like dads are in charge of the family. Like that I feel like that's normal, but I view moms as very much equal now too. But it was very much everything had to go by dad, except with the IFB, like there was a little friction in our family because my dad was going to be in charge of our family no matter what. But in the IFB, the pastor wants control. That's kind of what always saved us, honestly, was that my dad was not going to give a pastor control as much as he tried. And a lot of times, like my mom would even, I think it was just the culture that we were in. She would comply with our culture and like go to the pastor and like listen to the pastor over my dad. And it caused a lot of tension and friction. And like I did it sometimes too, where I would just go to the man of authority, the pastor, if dad wasn't there. And it became very much like where the pastor was father figure. And for some girls, I was lucky. I was not molested that I'm aware of at all. But some girls, that father figure turned into some daddy issues that were not mutually consensual. And it was just power that was used and abused, because when a man that is not your father or stepdad or somebody that's going to be there to protect you gets power over you, they use and abuse that, especially in that purity culture environment where they're suppressed and repressed, and all that they know is to just pop off on those
I kind of want to
instincts.
And I kind of want to touch on something that you just said here, because you've said it before, and it's something that is really interesting and equal parts depressing, is that, you know, when you've talked about how, to your knowledge, you've not been molested or assaulted growing up.
Yeah, so I don't have any memory of being molested at all, but I do have memories where like I don't know what happened. I don't know why. Like I don't remember why I don't remember situations, and I was alone with the pastor of our first cult a lot. Went to their house a lot, and I don't know, so I can't say no, he definitely didn't. Cuz like there's a part of me where I'm like I can't be the only girl, cuz literally every other girl. But I don't remember, so
and that's the part that is really difficult, and really I think illustrates the difficulty of this whole culture, of this movement, is that, listen, I mean, we trust your memories. Obviously, you know, I believe you when you say that absolutely nothing happened. But because you're so aware of what happens in these cultures, in these environments, because you know people that have been abused and stuff, you can't say with 100% certainty.
Yeah.
And that tells you how prevalent and how institutionalized this type of abuse and behavior was, is that there's no way that you can't even trust your own memories.
Yeah, and that's what it does, is like, because the girl, like all of these girls, like they said in the documentary, like this is the man of power, and like it happens, they're so naive and unaware of what sex is, what their sexual organs are, that they don't know when they've been molested. I think like the Ken's dick story or whatever, I kind of knew about body parts at that point, but I didn't know what sex was. Like, in these girls, they get abused and they get molested, and the boys know what they're doing. And these girls have no idea. They don't know that they can say no. They don't know why they should say no, other than virginity is this thing that they have to keep no matter what, even though they're uneducated about that decision, which I think that they should be educated about that decision. That's what I meant earlier. Like, you should be educated about that decision. And if you decide to stay a virgin until you're married, good. If you decide not to, okay. That's your decision.
Yeah, exactly. The choice is the key.
Yeah.
Because I have no problem with anyone, you know, obviously I come from a more liberal background when it comes to sex and sexuality. And it's something that, you know, I have different viewpoints than, you know, Dina on, but that's fine. The biggest thing that we both agree on is that the choice is what matters. It doesn't matter whether, like, and I'm the same way. I don't care if you wait till marriage. I don't care if you decide to be celibate your whole life. Do whatever you want to do, as long as what you want.
Yeah.
And that not someone else is making that choice for you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like it,
or like telling you can't have tampons because that breaks
I
your
have a tampon story.
takes that pleasure away from your future husband.
Yeah. Please tell us your tampon story, Dina.
So,
we're here for tampons.
Yeah, I was
Tampax,
very
not
much
a sponsor.
I was very much raised where you had to wear pads. That was all you had. And I don't think period underwear had even been invented yet. And tampons were going to steal your virginity, cause pleasure, because that body part was for a man's penis only.
Nothing else goes in there.
Devil
God
sticks.
damn it.
I think
devil
they call
sticks.
them devil sticks.
Devil sticks. I don't think I ever heard that, and I think I missed it in the doc. But anyway, Yeah, I had this friend who I think she had endometriosis. Her flow was like really awful. She was miserable. We were at a youth event at a river house by one of the rich families that pretends to be poor. And I want my hat back. Thank you.
Give her fucking hat back, guys.
Give her the fucking hat
Just
back.
want my
Look it
fucking
up
hat.
right now. Me and Sean will fucking find you.
Fucking find you.
She wanted to swim, and you can't swim if you're wearing a pad. I don't think. I never tried it. Sounds like that would be a really bad idea.
I mean, I feel like physically you can, but it's not like the best idea. Like nothing, it doesn't physically stop you from getting in the water.
It'd like implode though.
It's like a little force field
it might not go well for you, is all I'm saying.
So she got a tampon. I don't know how. I don't remember how. Mm-hmm. But like she pulled me into the bathroom and she was like, I have this and I want to go swimming. And I was like, like you can't have that.
Your husband.
Yeah,
this one
think of
swimming.
your husband, you 16-year-old innocent woman who just wants to swim. And we spent like 30 minutes in the bathroom trying to hype her up to just try to put in a tampon because she was so scared. And I was scared for her. I don't blame her because we were convinced that we were going to break our hymen and no longer be virgins. And what if it did cause sexual pleasure? Then what?
Yeah, what if she just orgasms right fucking there on the floor?
Right.
That's going to be so awkward.
She later
what are you going to do?
In a whole lot of trouble because her mom found the tampon because she never got to try it or anything. But yeah.
Like, can you just imagine? Like, I just imagine like this is how like the guy is like how the church like pictures like how this goes down. Like it's there. It's the wedding night. Everyone's waited. It's about to be the big moment. He puts it in. He goes, "The fuck? This is tampon sized. You're not a virgin. How dare you?" Like.
So like also one thing that like I would love to know because like we're educated and we know science. This has always stuck with me, and I got really dirty looks for saying this at a dinner once with cult adjacent people. And I was like, how would he know that she is a virgin? Because at the end of the day, a woman can fake it. We don't all bleed.
Take those Kegels, dude.
So, but I got really dirty looks, and like I wonder how the IFB handled that because obviously I did not lose my virginity in the IFB with an IFB man. So I wonder how they handled it if like a man was expecting blood and there was no blood.
So at least I can tell you historically when things have like, and I don't know specifically with IFB, and I'm just talking about like anecdotal things that I've heard from like cultures like throughout history, is there'd be things like women to make sure that they seemed like a virgin on with, they'd have like a little vial that they would break, to make sure that there was like blood on the bed. There's all sorts of different things there's all sorts of things that they would do to at least make it appear, because again, everyone's body is different. You're not, even someone who's an absolute virgin might not like, yeah.
What? That's crazy.
Oh yeah.
People are so fucking uneducated.
Oh yeah, no, 100%. And like, and it's always funny to me because it's like, do they think like a vagina is like memory foam, where like as soon as one thing's imprinted on it, it's like, yeah. So Dina, your vagina will never reshape again. It is molded only for Timothy's penis.
All of those, never mind. That was crossing a line. No, okay.
What? No, now I want to know, Dina.
We might have to cut it out. We might have to cut that one out.
God damn it, Dina. Thank you for joining me.
We cope with humor.
So,
we cope with humor.
Should we talk about Bill Gothard and the events that kind of led to his dismissal from the organization?
Let's fucking
go. And listen, I want to dive a little bit before we get into the allegations and stuff, a little bit about what a fucking weirdo this guy's just general life is/was. Like, beyond the religious stuff, like, he's not a normal person, which I know feels like an understatement of the year. But like, think about it. Like, first of all, and that's one of the things I hate about these guys that become these mega famous like pastor stuff. Because we talked about like the voice that like the women are supposed to have. And then we talked about how Jim Bob is always supposed to smile. These guys, whether it's Joel Osteen, whether it's Gothard, whether it's that who's the other satanic looking motherfucker, Sean? That
I know who you're talking
the
about.
devil hands.
Yeah, and then he got all crazy about his private jet.
Kenneth Copeland.
There he is. That might be the most evil man in all of existence. But they all try to like have this like, I am both peaceful, wise, but always gentle and happy. They've always got this little smirk on their face and this little, let me tell you about the Lord. And this whole thing that seems like they have it all together, that they're kind and they're gentle. And this guy, he never married, y'all. He didn't marry. He never had kids.
Never had kids.
And I got a problem. Yeah. So I got to say this with a little bit of leniency because my current pastor, I have a lot of respect for him. And I don't say that lightly because I don't respect pretty much every pastor that I meet. I got a problem with pastors that don't have a wife and kids. Mine does not, but I know his background and his story, and I respect that.
Yeah.
But I got a problem with it if they're guiding families and they have no children. Anyway, go ahead.
Yes. Because there's so many things that, especially now that, you're a parent, you're part of the parent club with us. And it's not, knocking people who aren't parents. I mean, yeah, why do you have children? And it's not knocking people that don't have kids. I mean, listen, dude, there's a lot of common sense adulting that you can do even if you don't have kids about what's right and what's wrong. Yeah. But like, there's some shit you just don't get unless you're a parent.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like there and like to be dictated by a guy that's never had any of that. And like, it's one thing if you're a Buddhist monk or if you're a Catholic and you've dedicated your life to your faith and you're not going to do anything except for God or whatever. But in the baptism world, that's not a requirement, man. That's not even anything that is necessary. Like he never even tried to say, well, I do this to be closer to God. Like he's not even trying to be like, I'm married to Jesus type of thing. This motherfucker just wanted zero attachments.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that only leads credence to how much of a creep that this guy was. At the end of it, 30 people came forward, 15 people tried to put a lawsuit together that fell through because of statute of limitations. But there
was a lot of chilling firsthand testimony from women who were formerly a part of these organizations.
The Gothard girls.
And their experiences with Bill Gothard personally and how they were basically hand selected by him and groomed to believe that their fathers didn't care about them and that he's the only one who loves them and like would schedule these weird recurring like private prayer sessions where he'd get on the floor with them and like touch them inappropriately in the name of prayer. Like,
or they'd be driving and like they'd be like, oh yeah, whoever's sitting next to him, he might have their hand up their skirt.
Oh yeah. And no one, like it was just normal. No one thought it was abnormal for him to do it because he's basically, what did they describe? One girl described him as the ultimate celebrity, like God and the Pope and Justin Bieber all rolled into one.
Yeah.
So no one's gonna question his authority or his decisions, and the arrogance to do that in front of members of your church, let alone in private.
Dude, they get off on it though. Like it's the power thing. When you have that much money, what do you get off on? Power.
And they talked about that he was constantly basically just trying to test his boundaries to see at what point people would be like, bro, you got to fucking stop. And it took a lot. And that's the thing that, that there's more victims. There's 30 that came forward. 30 that came forward. There's so many more that he silenced that he did. Because if he knew what his brother was doing and if he was okay with that, he was doing the same fucking shit, dude.
I'm sure he was okay with it because it kind of took the heat off of him. So like, oh, that's Steve. I'm nothing like him.
Yeah. And like he got kicked out like 7 years before the final kick out. But because there was such a big power struggle to take his spot, he was able to worm his way back in. His fucking enemies fought each other and he was able to get back in.
That is exactly what happened with the first cult that
there's for every like person who makes allegations, there's another 20 or 30 people who are loyal followers and would never believe it or not support their pastor or whatever. Yeah. And people are groomed to listen to the male authority, and he just kind of twisted that into like, this is how you react when you've been accused of something you didn't do, and like turned it into a religious lesson instead of taking responsibility for what he was being accused of.
And that's my biggest issue with so much extremism, man. And this is any faith, any religion. Because the craziest part is it doesn't matter if you're Christian, Jewish, Muslim. When you hit that highest level of extreme, all these practices, all these beliefs are all the same fucking thing. It's all that power over women. It's that control. It's that authority. It's that listen. You know, what did they talk about? That you need to listen and just obey immediately. Don't question. They want you in this authority structure that if you say jump, you immediately jump to it.
Obey, obey, obey.
Triggered. That was literally exactly what I grew up hearing from my parents. My dad specifically was, if I say jump, you ask questions later. However, he always taught me to question other authority. Like, he always said that for him, which I think that you should still question. But then
that's the difference right there.
Yeah.
Is that most people say, when I say jump, you jump. Your dad said, when I say jump, you jump. I'll explain why after the fact.
Yeah.
And if a person's not willing to explain a why and have a conversation, then that's probably not a good fucking direction.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was interesting that the way that everything finally came crashing down on him was that website.
The Fallen Grace or Recovering Grace. Yeah.
For like basically for people who were negatively affected by IBLP, who like would go on there and publish articles and like share their story, and then like suddenly other victims were finding this and being like, wait a minute, that happened to me. And then that's how that snowballed. And like, just reminds you about how the church program is designed around completely preventing that from happening.
Silence.
Yeah, they don't want any. Yeah, that's Matthew.
Daniel asked me to prepare this.
Yes.
And I thought it was relevant to this
I haven't watched
moment.
it yet.
It's a clip from South Park.
I specifically didn't watch it in our chat.
Yep. And
South Park is usually spot on.
Yeah, it is. And that's the sad part.
No, thank you for finally organizing an all-priest meeting, Father Maxey. I think we all agree something has to be done quickly.
Yeah, it does. It certainly does. Well, I don't know how it's been for all of you, but attendance at my church in Fort Rollins is down 63%.
I'm down almost 70 in Greenleaf.
But yes, I'm afraid if things keep going the way they are, we could lose our entire religion. Yes, we've got to stop these boys from going to the public.
They've got to know to keep their mouths shut.
Yep. Right, and so, wait a minute, what?
Yes, but we've got to find out why these children are suddenly finding it necessary to report that they're being molested. Stop the problem at its source.
Yes, but how? I don't know what... Whoa, hold on a second. The problem is that children are being molested, not that they're reporting it. How do you mean? Well, I mean, obviously what we need to stop is all the sexual misconduct that is allowed to take place in our churches. Not just tell the children not to tell anybody about it. I mean, right?
Or did any of the children you've molested come forward?
No.
Well, that's good.
No, I mean, I never molested any of the children in my church. It's okay, Father Maxey. We're all priests here. The doors are closed. Well, for the love of God, are you all saying that you have engaged in inappropriate relations with your altar boys? We are here to bring the light of God, not harm the innocent. I'm serious.
Okay. I think that says what it needs to say.
Okay, story time though.
Yeah, please, Dina.
The second cult that we actually got kicked out of, the second cult, because my dad was a treasurer. Everybody knows what that is, right? Like, that's a common term.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
he was the treasurer, and he caught the pastors.
That means he hid the treasure for pirates. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, he's the one who dug the hole and put the X over it after.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
They were in a meeting with the deacons himself, and then I don't think the pastor was present, but he caught a discrepancy in the finances where the pastor was stealing thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. And there was also abuse allegations going on at the time that he kind of threw in there at the same time as the money allegations. And everybody in the room said basically exactly what everybody else was like, no, just we don't report, we don't talk about it. We got to figure out how to keep it quiet for him.
How do we make sure nobody finds out about this?
Yeah, it wasn't, wow, that's really bad. he's stealing money out of the pockets of our poor and impoverished congregation. It was, no. How do we not get people to find out?
Like, can you just imagine the first person that's like I just imagine they were sitting there in the room and they're all like, all right, listen, we're fucking up a lot here, guys. There's a lot of bad press, a lot of bad media. How do we fix it? Can we find a Bible verse? Hey, I remember something from Matthew 2 something.
And that's exactly what the IVLP and IFB do. They cherry pick verses instead of taking an entire section, which like I am very adamant as a Christian that I will not attend a church that cherry picks verses. Like, we're not doing that shit because it's all taken out of context and used as like a Matthew 2:18 principle.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, man, like, can you just imagine like you're the guy that's supposed to be researching, like, all right, guys, I need you to find me a loophole in the Bible. Let's fucking go.
They do that though. Like there are literally meetings of somebody asked me this, help me find a solution. And they just pick one verse out of context.
Yeah. It's something like, oh yeah, like.
Not to mention the erasure of women in the KJV version of the Bible, but that's a different story.
100%.
I was so bitter when I found out about that.
And that's the thing that just is crazy to me, that the solutions, like, this has become a multi-million-dollar operation, $90 million. And they don't actually care about the people. They just don't want the money to stop. And it becomes a greed thing. I mean, when you start, like when they kept on talking about the multiple houses, the planes and stuff, or even, in the 4th episode, they go into like meeting Paul, Paul.
Goddamn. Yep. Back to Paul.
Meeting Bill like later afterwards. And, he still lives in this house by himself and he has nothing and no one, but he's still uber prepared for this giant meeting, and it's just it's horrifying to look at.
Maybe it's because I'm poor. By the way, you can find my Amazon wish list in this description below. Maybe it's because I'm poor, but I cannot wrap my brain around the money-seeking behavior. Not because I don't seek money. I do. I definitely do. It's my fault. But they have so much money and nothing to do with it. And my thing is like, I want money so that I want to take care of my friends. I want to take care of my family. And that's what I want to do with it. But they get this money and they just go, mine. And don't do anything with it. And I don't understand the point.
Well, I mean, they've done studies that in terms of just generalities, people like that are considered in that poor class are more generous with their money than people in the wealthy class. Like they donate higher percentages, they do more charitable works. And there's definitely something about once you get to that richness level that you're there to fucking hoard it like you're a goddamn dragon, like you're fucking Smog from The Hobbit. You're like, yeah, I just want to sit on my pile of gold and influence. Fuck actually helping people. Like I would have I'd have such a less a problem with these mega churches and these giant things if they actually if they put a higher percentage of their money and influence into the community. Like I remember during Hurricane Katrina, wasn't it again our boy Joel Osteen? They're like, hey man, we need to like put refugees somewhere. You got this giant church, and he's like, yeah, I'm not.
Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, I'm not opening these doors to the poor.
I'm sorry, who? I don't know.
Jesus, well known for making it
turning
rain.
People away who are in need. Yes, that was Jesus's MO.
Jesus was like, listen, keep the poors away from me.
The poors and the whores, Jesus wanted nothing to do with them.
Yep. It's well documented.
And that's the thing is that, again, even Gothard, just like his brother, didn't face real consequences. He had to step away, but he's still fucking rich, dude. He still has a nice house. He's faced no legal troubles. He probably goes out in public, and at least maybe not since this documentary, but doesn't even have a fucking problem. Nothing happened to him.
And you know what? I'm trying to find a way to tie in my segue. I don't have a way to segue this. Purity culture with men is so different than it is with women too. And it really, really bothers me because I just keep replaying in my head the woman that said, she didn't know that she could say no. She didn't even know that no was a thing because she didn't know what was happening. And purity culture is pushed on girls so much, and no responsibility is given to the man. Gothard has built this empire. Here's my segue. Gothard has built this empire around purity culture, where no man is accountable for his virginity and for his actions and his eyes and his brain, but every woman is responsible for theirs without knowing what it is they're responsible for it. And yet women have no authority. So why are we responsible for it if we have no authority?
Because at the end of the day...
No, go ahead.
No. Because at the end of the day, like, and think about how easy it is pushed under the rug. Like, it starts with everything from the eye traps to how you dress and stuff, because everything about this purity culture, about this sexual repression of women, about this control, again, of women, it's all designed to control, subjugate, and keep you guys from having any authority. Because they are, I'm sure we can get into 1,000 things, but all these things, it all is, think about how easy it is for the guy to just be forgiven. Man, if a guy has sex, listen, he's strayed. He's strayed from the path. He prayed real hard. He's going to do a little bit of work. He's going to be fine. It's not a big deal for this non-virginal man to marry, right? It doesn't even think twice. It's an easily forgiven sin, because guess what? Boys will be boys. We know that they're tempted so much more than women. We fucking are fighting back these boners every single day. But Dina, I know that you never want sex. You've never felt any sort of anything in your life, right?
What is turned on? What does that mean?
I think it has something to do with a light switch. I can't be sure.
Electricity. Yeah. Got it.
Electricity. Yeah. And so all of that is easily forgiven. But you as a woman, if God forbid, maybe you even masturbated one time before marriage, that's unforgivable, Dina. That is unforgivable. Straight to hell. And like think about this when freaking remember when Jill talked about how they finally had the ability to say no, and and they showed like that brief clip of like what the nasty messages were that maybe anonymously was really her dad or someone, whatever, right?
Mm-hmm. Dude, what if it was her mom? I thought about that a lot.
But I remember one of the lines that stuck out to me that was just on like a quick, like brief clip is it said, "I gave you an untouched virginal woman." And I just thought about that. I was like, that is such a degrading, humiliating thing. She has nothing. Her only value is that she has been untouched. I've given you this beautiful, pristine property, is what that text message said.
Which is odd how it was phrased, because, okay, I want to say this carefully. In the IFB, because there was a little bit of a mind map, but I have to give you a lot of background so that we can be really careful and diligent and respectful about this. So, in the IFB, there's
respectful mind map.
There's a lot of racism, right? And especially in the era that I grew up in, right after 9/11, there was a lot of hate against Muslims. And it was I often heard that like I don't know anything about the Muslim religion, so I very much apologize if I'm saying anything wrong or off kilter or anything. They felt like when you get to their heaven, you get like 7 or 10 virgins, I think, and like that's the ultimate.
It depends on how many,
for a man.
It can be up to 99 virgins. I don't know all the specifics. I just know that number can get pretty fucking high.
Okay. All right. Well, like, and that when I saw that text on the documentary, that's all that I was thinking about was like, if this person that is sending this text is from the IFB, we have to look at it from a little bit of a racist standpoint or perspective, where they talk about how like disgusting it is for the Muslim religion to desire to gain these virgins in their heaven, and yet he's talking about presenting one single virginal prize. And I was like, now that I'm out, I can look at that and go, you talk shit about Muslims idolizing virgins, and yet here you are, I'm not part of it anymore, and you're idolizing a woman like a prize for her virginity, as though she is worth nothing more. And yet that is how the IFB paints the Muslim religion. And I was like, that's all that stuck in my head when I saw that.
it's absolute hypocrisy. And think about it like this, is that imagine how that has to feel. Because, like, I've heard stories, like, my mom was a therapist, and while she doesn't give, like, details, she, especially if there was, like, a really difficult case that she just felt like she needed to vent about, like, I'd hear things. And I'm sure we've talked a little bit about it in, God knows, some episode way in the past, where there's such think about for their entire life, sex is a sin, sexuality is a sin. Mm-hmm. You have to be virginal, you have to be all this stuff. And then when you get married, you finally have this opportunity to break off the shackles. But how do you deprogram however many years, God, I hope it's at least 18 years of being told that this is the worst thing that you can ever do. Do not have sex. Do not do any of this. And then you're allowed to do it. How are you able to make that switch in your mind? And then think about how your virginity was the most important thing in your life. And then even though you've had sex with your husband, you no longer have it. You've been devalued, at least in this Christian thing.
So okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll give you some personal perspective on this one. 2 parts. Let's hold on to that second part that you just said about how you no longer have it and that's all that you had. So when I got married, I was no longer IFB when I got married. And Tim is one of the people that like helped me start to gain that verbiage of cult. Because even when I got out, I still was like not really accepting of the term because I was like, it's just a weird church. But no, it's a cult. It's not a church. And he was not IFB. And going, like, without delving into too much detail, to respect him, it was very difficult for us in the beginning because I had been told my whole life that, don't have sex, don't have sex. We don't want sex. We don't want sex. Nothing is attractive. Nothing turns you on, all of that. So it is a very difficult start to a marriage, especially for a man that didn't wait till he was married and had sex with other women. And then I was a virgin. That was a very difficult transition. It takes a lot of communication and like 2 people being very, very open to communicating. You have to just lay it all out there and have no shame. And I got very lucky with who I married because he was very accepting and willing to work through everything. The second part, so what the IFB and Christians will and I say and Christians because I don't think this is exclusive to the IFB. It might be. But when you no longer have your virginity, if you lost it through marriage, you're not devalued because you don't have it. You're still a virgin. You're still pure. Yeah, so you're still pure. You're not still a virgin. You're still pure because you lost it under the umbrella of marriage. So they don't get devalued because of that.
You say that, but think about this. What happens if you're a widower? Widower.
Right, yeah. And that is something that like is very problematic. It happens a lot. And like widower, remarried, like what does that mean?
And no matter what, you are still considered to be, you were married once, even though you did everything the right way.
Right.
You're still not quite as new and shiny as you could have been.
Yeah.
And I think that was part of like the more I heard about Gothard, the more I just realized that this was a dude with a very specific kink that got put into a very high position of power because he obviously loved fucking the purity and virgins. Everything that you hear, at least from the documentary, it was over the shirt, maybe it was under the dress, it was touching, it was doing all these things. And he wanted the most virginal, pure girls that he could get. And that was his kink. And it almost even reminded me a little bit of like, those stories of Gandhi, where he said that, hey, listen, I'm not taking a wife. I'm not, doing this stuff. Have you not heard these stories of Gandhi?
Was Gandhi a bad guy?
Not necessarily a bad guy, but he made some very questionable decisions when it came to sexuality stuff. There's very famous stories about how he would lie naked in bed with his naked either cousin or niece, and he wouldn't do anything with them, but that was how he tested his resolve and tested his purity, his ability to resist.
The fuck not. Castrate him.
Yeah, and that is, to me, felt very Gothard-esque, where I'm sure that there was worse that just isn't reported, and God knows I don't know what actually happened, but at least from the testimonies that we have, it feels like a guy that would try to push his boundaries as much as he could, and it's just fucking sick stuff, because again, like, it's such a weird thing to devalue or de-rationalize someone just because whether they're virgins or not. And even if they do things the right way, you're no longer seen the same way. You're now the married woman,
Yeah. Yeah, I get that.
Anyways, guys, and so like there's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and a lot of, the biggest thing that they talk about is, because I do want to, kind of move forward from this in a second, but the sexual abuse and sexual assault stuff that happened in the IFB is so much more than just Gothard or Gothard's brother or, some of these level things. I mean, they talk about at these church camps that, my leader would just crawl into my bed. Like you said, she didn't know she could say no. And it's rampant everywhere in this culture. And that's the thing that just as a father to a daughter, man, like, it terrifies me that there is such a big movement going forward with no oversight, no checks and balances, and that these people are trying to influence every level, whether it's government, schools, stuff like that, and that they can push this agenda that they claim to be pure, but it doesn't, it gets rid of responsibility, right? It is me until God told me to do this. God was telling me, calling me.
Dude, you're scared with your daughter and you're not even adjacent to said culture. I'm a Christian still, and there are a lot of, like, I don't typically associate with Baptists. You're going to be hard pressed to find me associated with anybody, IFB, IBLP, Southern Baptist Convention. You're going to be very hard pressed to find me associating. But I'm still a Christian, and I'm raising a boy close to that culture, and I am terrified, and every single day I wake up and I have to diligently seek to teach him just the Bible, not all of that bullshit man-made religion, because I will not support him and tolerate any of that behavior in him.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing that, and I'm with you on that, and I think that's the biggest thing is that preach responsibility, preach accountability. If you're a man, be a fucking man and protect others. Don't abuse others. Don't use these cheap tricks or hide behind religion so that you can do this shit, man. Like, we need to start teaching men to be responsible for themselves and their actions.
Yeah.
Like, you're not an animal. You're not an animal. Just because you might get a little aroused doesn't mean that you have fucking carte blanche to do whatever the fuck you want to people and just be like, oh, that's just boys will be boys. Insane. You can't help it. And like, I think that that's the biggest thing that lacks in all of that is there's a lack of responsibility, a lack of accountability, and it perpetuates this behavior.
Yeah, it does. Sad.
So, Sean, do you have any final kind of thoughts and shots? Because I know that this is probably a tough one for you too, because you're also a father. You have a daughter as well.
As a father, it is a difficult thing to learn about and to hear about, but I find that it's, I don't know, I'm able to kind of disconnect myself from it in an emotional way, in ways that I didn't expect. I think I've seen enough of these shitty documentaries. Like, the documentary's good, obviously. I mean, like, shitty situations portrayed in documentaries that I've kind of become desensitized to it. Kelly and I watch a lot of murdery,
true crimey,
true crime stuff, and just after a while, it's just you just go numb from all the horribleness, and it's just ugh. When it has to specifically to do with young women, it is harder, and I want to do my best to be a positive male role model so that my kid knows how a man should act.
And like, going off of that, I mean, sometimes we joke around about how, as men, how low the fucking bar is in 2024. As a soccer coach, I coach girls, and my bar is just don't be fucking creepy to them. Don't abuse them. Don't groom them. That's how low the bar is. That's how low our expectations are, because in any of these positions of power, whether it's religious, organizational, I mean, there's issues with the national gymnastics program. All these people, if they're given an instant of power, immediately turn around to abuse women. And all you have to be a good fucking person is not do what is basic human decency. And
that's the bar over general, but your goal is to protect them and be a good role model, right?
Oh, God, yes.
Okay.
Yes, God, yes. But I'm just saying, that's how low the standards have gone. And I appreciate that, but that's how low the standards are. I got like, I work at a, at a place where like I have, college girls that like are like work for our program. Like I had a compliment the other day, and it like in the moment, like I got it, and then I started thinking about it, and it kind of like, it was such a nice compliment, but it also kind of like made me sad for like what the state of society was. I had a counselor tell me that I was safe. That she viewed me, and I know that you've said similar to both me and Sean, that you view us like family, that we are
that
safe
means
individuals.
Everything to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
I think you're both safe.
The greatest compliment that these people feel comfortable enough with me as a person, that being safe is important to them, that matters to them. And it was one of the nicest things that anyone's ever said to me. But the fact that needs to be a compliment, the fact that we're at a place now where that's not just the status quo, where that's not just the given, that's something that, oh my gosh, this is like a pleasant surprise. You stand out because I feel you are safe. Like that hurt. Not me, but just hurt that this is a life that this girl has to live, that a lot of these girls have to live, that is something that they look for, that they seek because of how prevalent abuse is in society.
Mm-hmm.
And that was hard to think about when I started walking down that. Yeah. Like you said, how many people outside of your dad did you feel you were safe with growing up that were men?
One. It was his best friend.
And unchecked power can lead to people who are supposed to make people feel safe exploit that and push it till it all blows up.
Yeah.
So the next time we talk about this will be the final chapter of the series. And we can have a little bit of a retrospect about all of the feels and all of the horrible traumas that we're making Dina relive.
Thank you, Dina.
So stay tuned for that.
You guys want to see how the IFB taught us to, dead-ass serious, how they taught us to practice our smiles?
Yes, please.
So you gotta puff out your gum a little bit. So you gotta tongue right there, and then you gotta pinch cheek, and then teeth together. And you never drop it.
It's feel like creepy. The little lean back.
Yeah.
And the chin kind of falls right into place.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Wow, it's
and,
really
and
good.
you can talk with it and everything, really and nobody ever like notices that it's fake as fuck.
God damn it, that does work. That
I'm gonna notice when you do that smile.
Now off screen we have to check if Dina's pinching your cheeks. Like if
I do it every time Daniel makes me uncomfortable.
You have to pinch your cheeks, and then that's when.
Yeah. So next time we talk about this, it'll be the final chapter. It'll go into post Gothard era, and more disturbing shit with Josh Duggar, and how political power has been amassed by these fundamentalists nationwide.
Yeah. So when we're ready to drink, when we're ready to drink more moonshine and feel sad, we will do another cult episode. But thankfully, next week our guest is not part of a cult, wrote an incredible book, and will not bum us out the whole time. Yeah. Hopefully.
I don't know. Is Canada like a cult?
Oh, of course. It's not a real country.
It's America's hat.
Yeah. They're just bullshit. All right, Dina, we don't abide Canadians here unless you're Jess. I miss you, Jess. I love you.
We have a Canadian coming on next week.
Just for the record, Jess didn't die. Also, Daniel did not get that connection at all. Yes, Abby Simpson, the author of The Dragon and the Butterfly, will be joining us next week. Our first author interview of this season, and boy, are we excited.
Yeah, I just want to ask her what she puts maple syrup on. I assume everything, like not just food. Like I just assume that
she doesn't put it on. I think
that's a good question.
Just
that's my big. Just
if you guys notice in the background for Sean, Jill is doing the IFB smile. You can spot it.
Actually, I'm sorry. I meant to mostly cover them up the whole time. You know, since they're supposed to be in the background.
Yeah, it's supposed to be seen
behind the men.
Yeah. Oh.
Like. The strong man should be in front, and then like they should just be in the background, smiling and being silent.
Yeah,
yeah.
100%. Isn't that the rule? I'm sorry,
yes.
I'm trying to learn.
Also, on a side note, I loved that like these people were just so like hungry for just normal human interaction that literally 30 days from her wedding night, she had her first kid. Like, she was DTF. She was ready.
That's not how it went down, I guarantee you.
All right. So if you guys have an opinion on any of this, if you want to ask Dina a question about her experience in this cult, if you want to shame Daniel for being inappropriate, give us a call. What's the phone number, Daniel?
It's 347-69-WEIRD. That's 347-699-3473. God, I was really inappropriate this episode, guys. I'm so sorry.
You're going to get fired.
I cut most of it. Don't worry.
Yeah, thank you. Sean, can you just play the sorry soundtrack real quick for me?
No, can you ask us where people can find us on social media so we can get the fuck out of here?
I think Sean's hungry.
I asked you to wrap it up literally 20 minutes ago. I asked you to wrap it up.
Sean's hungry.
I have 2 kids. I've been bad at wrapping it up for a long time. Guys,
you can find me on Twitter at Dinosaurus D. That's D like D's nuts.
Sean, where can the folks find you?
You can find me on Twitter at ShaySoldu.
What are you having for dinner?
Unclear. It's gonna be a leftover scavenger hunt.
No time. You can find me on Dan Q Writes Thing. That's Dan Q Writes Thing singular.
He still talks in slow motion, even when he's talking fast. No time. Like, that was so slow.
There's no time. Dina, we don't have time for this frivolity.
You can find me on Threads at Dinosaurus D, my W. I need followers. Amazon wishlist in the description.
Follow us on Threads. Love you all. Jazz hands.
Jazz hands.
I don't know why I was about to click close.
Don't Make It Weird with Daniel Quigley, Dinosaurus, and Sean Holden. Produced and edited by me, Sean Holden. Theme song by Amaria. Incidental music and sound effects provided by VoiceMod, as well as the YouTube audio library. You can rate and review this show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, and wherever else you download your podcasts. Got a question for Daniel or Dina? Call the Don't Make It Weird hotline at 347-69-WEIRD. That's 347-699-3473, and leave us a message. It could be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to Don't Make It Weird on YouTube for the video presentation, or on your favorite podcast app for the audio-only version of the show. Thank you so much, and we love you. Don't make it weird. Was that okay?